Tonight, we begin with two hearts that found each other in the most unlikely place, where civilization meets wilderness, and where love grows as naturally as vines around ancient trees. This is the story of Tarzan and Jane, but not the adventure you might expect. This is their quiet story, the gentle moments between the swinging and the exploring, when the jungle settles into evening calm and two souls discover that home isn't a place, it's a feeling you share with someone special. Before you close your eyes and let this story carry you away, take a moment to get comfortable. Adjust your pillows, pull your blankets close, and let your breathing slow to match the rhythm of the jungle night. Tonight, we're not rushing anywhere. We're simply visiting a peaceful corner of the world where time moves like honey and every moment feels like a gift. The jungle never truly sleeps, but it does whisper. As the golden sun dips below the canopy, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, a different kind of magic begins to stir. The chattering of daytime birds gives way to the gentle chorus of crickets and tree frogs. Fireflies begin their nightly dance, blinking like tiny stars that have lost their way home. And in this enchanted twilight, our story unfolds. Jane Clayton had been living in the jungle for several months now, long enough for her Victorian sensibilities to soften around the edges, like a book left in gentle sunlight. Her crisp white blouses had given way to flowing cotton dresses that moved with the breeze. Her perfectly pinned hair now fell in loose waves around her shoulders, decorated with small flowers that Tarzan would quietly tuck behind her ear when he thought she wasn't looking. This evening, like many others, found them sitting together on their favorite branch of the great mahogany tree that Tarzan had called home for so many years. The branch was wide and smooth, worn comfortable by countless sunsets and conversations. Jane had initially been terrified of the height, but Tarzan's gentle confidence had gradually taught her to trust both the strength of the tree and the steadiness of his presence beside her. They sat close enough that their shoulders touched, watching the jungle transform from day to night. Jane's legs dangled freely, no longer worried about propriety or the proper way a lady should sit. Tarzan's hand rested gently over hers, his calloused fingers surprisingly gentle as they traced lazy circles on her palm. The jungle spread out before them like a living tapestry. Emerald leaves rustled with the evening breeze, creating a sound like gentle rain on a distant roof somewhere below. A family of monkeys chattered softly to each other as they settled in for the night. The air was warm and sweet, heavy with the scent of night-blooming jasmine and the rich, earthy smell of growing things. Jane had brought her leather-bound journal, as she did most evenings, planning to document the day's discoveries. But tonight, the blank pages remained untouched in her lap. There was something about this particular evening that felt too precious to capture in words, too perfect to disturb with the scratch of a pen. Tarzan noticed her stillness and turned to study her profile in the fading light. Her face was peaceful, relaxed in a way that still amazed him. When she had first arrived in his jungle, her features had been tight with worry and determination. Now, months later, she looked like someone who had finally learned how to breathe deeply. The transformation hadn't been one-sided. Jane's presence had changed Tarzan in ways he was only beginning to understand. For years, his world had been one of action and reaction, of swinging through trees and protecting his territory. But Jane had brought something new, something he had never known he was missing. She had brought the gift of stillness, of sitting quietly and watching the world simply exist. A gentle splash from the watering hole below caught their attention. A family of elephants had come to drink, their massive forms moving with surprising grace through the shallows. The matriarch lowered her great head to the water, while her calf splashed playfully nearby, spraying droplets that caught the last rays of sunlight like scattered diamonds. Jane smiled at the sight, and Tarzan felt his heart do that peculiar flutter that had become so familiar since her arrival. It wasn't the racing excitement of swinging through the canopy or the sharp alertness of sensing danger. This was something slower, deeper, like the steady growth of roots finding their way through rich soil. As the elephants wandered away into the deepening dusk, Jane finally spoke. Her voice, soft and wondering, she told Tarzan about her dreams the night before, how she had dreamed of flying through the trees, not by swinging on vines, but simply by floating, carried by the warm evening air like a feather on the breeze. In her dream, the jungle had welcomed her, not as a visitor, but as someone who truly belonged. And she had felt a peace so complete that waking up had felt like returning from a perfect vacation. Tarzan listened with the kind of attention he usually reserved for tracking dangerous animals or reading the subtle signs of weather changes. But Jane's words required a different kind of listening, one that he was still learning. She spoke of feelings and dreams, of the way moonlight looked different here than it had in London, of how the sound of wind through leaves had become more beautiful to her than any symphony she had ever heard in the finest concert halls. When she finished speaking, a comfortable silence settled between them like a favorite blanket. The night sounds of the jungle created a gentle symphony around them. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called out in low, melodious notes. The rustle of small creatures moving through the undergrowth provided a soft percussion, and underneath it all was the steady, ancient breathing of the jungle itself, the slow inhale and exhale of a world that had found its rhythm long before humans ever walked beneath its canopy. Tarzan began to speak, his voice deeper and more thoughtful than the bold calls he used to communicate across great distances. He told Jane about the first time he had noticed her watching the sunset from their tree, how something about her expression had made him understand that there were kinds of beauty he had never learned to see. Before her arrival, sunsets had simply been the signal that day was ending and night beginning. But watching Jane watch the sky had taught him that there was wonder in the transition itself, magic in the gradual transformation from light to darkness. He spoke about how her presence had changed the very texture of his days. Tasks that had once been purely practical had taken on new meaning. When he gathered fruit now, he found himself selecting the ripest, most perfect pieces to share with her. When he discovered a new clearing or a particularly beautiful view, his first thought was of bringing her there to see it through her eyes. As Tarzan spoke, Jane felt herself relaxing even more deeply into the peaceful evening. His voice had a quality that reminded her of distant thunder, rumbling and safe, or perhaps the purring of a great cat content in the sunshine. There was something profoundly calming about the way he spoke of simple things with such care and attention. The moon began to rise, casting silver shadows through the leaves and painting everything in soft, dreamlike light. Jane noticed how the moonbeams seemed to dance on Tarzan's skin, highlighting the gentle strength in his hands and the peaceful expression on his face. This was a side of him that few would ever see, the quiet man who emerged when the day's adventures were done, and there was nothing left to do but exist in the present moment, a family of nocturnal birds began their evening song, their voices weaving together in harmonies that seemed designed to lull the entire jungle into a state of peaceful contentment. Jane felt her eyelids growing heavy, not with ordinary tiredness, but with the deep, satisfied weariness that comes from a day spent exactly where you belong. Tarzan noticed her growing drowsiness and gently adjusted their position on the branch, creating a more comfortable resting place against the broad trunk of the tree. Jane settled against his shoulder with a soft sigh of contentment, feeling safer and more at peace than she had ever imagined possible. The jungle continued its gentle lullaby around them, a symphony of contentment that seemed to promise that some stories don't need dramatic endings. Some adventures are found in stillness, and some of the greatest treasures in life are the quiet moments shared between two hearts that have found their home in each other. The warmth of Tarzan's presence beside her felt like the most natural thing in the world, as if she had been designed to fit perfectly in this exact spot, at this exact moment. With this exact person, Jane's breathing began to synchronize with the gentle rhythm of the jungle night, each exhale releasing a little more of the tension she hadn't even realized she was carrying. From their perch high in the mahogany tree, the world below looked like a living painting, created by an artist who understood that beauty didn't need to shout to be magnificent. Patches of moonlight dappled the jungle floor, creating pools of silver light that shifted and danced as the leaves moved in the evening breeze. A gentle stream wound its way through the undergrowth, its surface reflecting the stars like scattered coins on dark velvet. Tarzan's hand found hers in the silvery darkness, his fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture so natural it might have been choreographed by the jungle itself. His palm was warm and slightly rough from years of climbing and swinging, but his touch was impossibly gentle, like he was holding something precious and fragile. Jane thought about the strange journey that had brought her to this moment. Months ago, she had been a different person entirely, someone who measured her days in tea times and social obligations, whose greatest adventure was reading about distant lands in the safety of her father's library. Now sitting in a tree in the heart of an African jungle, she realized that all those books had failed to capture the most important truth about adventure, that the greatest discoveries weren't found in new places, but in finding out who you really were when everything familiar was stripped away. A soft sound drifted up from below, the gentle snuffling of some small creature making its way home through the underbrush. Jane smiled in the darkness, remembering how such sounds had once filled her with terror. Now they felt like a lullaby, the jungle's way of saying goodnight to all its children. Tarzan began to hum softly, a melody Jane had never heard, but that seemed to have been written specifically for moments like this. It was a tune without urgency, without beginning or end, just a gentle succession of notes that rose and fell like the breathing of someone deep in peaceful sleep. The sound rumbled through his chest where Jane's head rested, creating a vibration that was more felt than heard. As the humming continued, Jane found herself thinking about the peculiar magic of this place. In London, nighttime had meant closing curtains and shutting out the world. Here, darkness was an invitation to become part of something larger. The jungle didn't sleep in the way cities did, with everything grinding to a halt behind locked doors. Instead, it simply shifted into a different rhythm, like a great orchestra changing from a daytime symphony to an evening serenade. The air was filled with the sweet fragrance of night-blooming flowers, their perfume so delicate and complex that no human perfumer could have recreated it. Jane breathed deeply, trying to memorize the scent so she could carry it with her always. It smelled like peace, she thought drowsily, like contentment distilled into something you could actually inhale. A gentle splash from the watering hole below drew their attention to a lone deer that had come to drink. The animal moved with liquid grace, its reflection wavering on the water's surface as it lowered its head to drink. Even from their height, they could see the creature's ears twitching, alert but not afraid, simply aware of its surroundings in the way that wild things always were. Tarzan's humming faded into silence, replaced by his voice speaking in barely more than a whisper. He told Jane about the first night he had spent in this very tree as a child, how the great apes who had raised him had taught him that trees were not just places to climb, but places to belong. Each tree in the jungle had its own personality, its own way of holding you, its own unique view of the world. This mahogany, he explained, had been his favorite from the beginning. Its branches grew in exactly the right places for sleeping. Its leaves provided perfect shelter from rain, and its height offered a view that somehow made everything in the world make sense. It was a tree for thinking, for dreaming, for watching the endless cycle of days turn into nights and back into days again. Jane listened with the kind of attention she had once reserved for her favorite stories. But this was better than any book because it was real and happening now, and she was part of it. She asked Tarzan what he had dreamed about during all those nights alone in the tree before she had arrived to share his world. Tarzan was quiet for a long moment, his hand still gentle in hers. Finally, he spoke about dreams he hadn't understood at the time, dreams of voices speaking in languages he didn't recognize, of faces that looked almost like his but different, of places with straight lines and hard corners that seemed impossible in a world of growing things. Now, he understood that those dreams had been preparing him for her arrival, for the moment when his world would expand to include not just the jungle, but the whole wide world that existed beyond it. But the most important thing he had learned, he told her, was that home wasn't a place you found, but a feeling you created with someone else. The jungle had been his territory, his domain, his responsibility, but it had never been home until Jane arrived to share it with him. Now every sunrise felt like a gift they unwrapped together, every sunset like a promise that tomorrow would bring more moments like this one. Jane felt tears gathering in her eyes, not from sadness, but from a happiness so complete it seemed to overflow from her heart, like water from a fountain. She had spent her entire life before this moment, feeling like she was waiting for something, though she had never known what. Now she understood that she had been waiting for this, for the feeling of being exactly where she belonged, with exactly the person she was meant to be with. A family of fireflies began to dance around their tree, their lights blinking in patterns that seemed almost like a conversation. Jane and Tarzan watched in comfortable silence as the tiny lights painted trails of gold in the darkness, creating a light show more beautiful than any fireworks display she had ever seen in London. The night grew deeper around them, but neither felt any urgency to move. This was one of those moments that existed outside of time, where minutes could stretch like hours, and hours could pass like minutes. The jungle continued its gentle lullaby, a symphony of small sounds that wove together into something that was less music than it was pure peace made audible. Tarzan shifted slightly, adjusting his position to make Jane more comfortable, and she settled against him with a soft sigh that spoke of complete trust and perfect contentment. His arm came around her shoulders, not possessively but protectively, like he was creating a small shelter just for her within the larger shelter of their tree. Jane found herself thinking about the letters she had stopped writing home, the reports she had once felt obligated to send back to civilization. How could she possibly explain this life to people who measured existence in terms of social functions and business appointments? How could she describe the way happiness felt when it grew naturally from simply being alive in the world with someone you loved? The answer, she realized, was that some experiences were too precious to translate. Some gifts were meant to be lived rather than described, felt rather than analyzed, treasured rather than shared with anyone except the person who had helped create them. As the night deepened further, Jane felt herself drifting into that peaceful space between waking and sleeping, where thoughts became dreams and dreams felt more real than memories. Beside her, Tarzan's breathing had settled into the slow, steady rhythm of someone completely at peace, and Jane let herself match that rhythm, feeling her own heartbeat slow to synchronize with his. The last thing she was aware of before sleep claimed her was the gentle sway of their branch in the evening breeze, the warm, solid presence of Tarzan beside her, and the absolute certainty that she was home. In the gentle darkness of their tree sanctuary, time moved like the slow current of the stream below, carrying away all urgency and leaving only the sweetest kind of drowsiness. Jane's dreams began to weave themselves around the reality of where she lay, creating a tapestry of contentment that felt more real than any waking moment she had ever experienced. She dreamed that she and Tarzan were walking through a garden that existed somewhere between the jungle and the English countryside she had known as a child. Ancient oak trees grew alongside towering mahogany, their branches intertwining overhead to create a canopy that filtered sunlight into patterns of gold and green. Wildflowers carpeted the ground in impossible colors, blues that sang and yellows that hummed gentle melodies. In this dream garden, every flower they passed seemed to nod its head in greeting, and butterflies, with wings like stained glass windows, danced around them in lazy spirals. Jane found that she could understand the language of the birds, their songs telling stories of distant lands and ancient wisdom. Tarzan's hand in hers felt exactly as it did in waking life, warm and strong and infinitely comforting. They came upon a clearing where a crystal stream bubbled over smooth stones, each drop of water catching the light like tiny prisms. Without speaking, they both knew this was a place for wishes, and they knelt by the water's edge to make silent promises to each other and to the peaceful world that surrounded them. The wishes felt so real that Jane could almost see them floating on the water's surface like flower petals, beautiful and fragile and perfect. Meanwhile, Tarzan's own dreams carried him to a version of the jungle where every tree was singing in harmony, their voices deep and resonant like the world's oldest choir. The great apes who had raised him were there, but now they spoke in words he could understand, telling him stories of love that transcended all boundaries between civilized and wild, between the known and the mysterious. In his dream, Jane was teaching the baby animals to read from picture books that grew like leaves on the trees, their pages rustling with stories that changed each time you looked at them. A family of young monkeys sat in a circle around her, their faces serious with concentration, as she pointed to drawings that moved and danced across the living pages. Her voice was like music as she read, each word floating through the air like a soap bubble filled with rainbow light. The dream jungle was endless and intimate at the same time, vast enough to hold every adventure they could ever imagine, but cozy enough to feel like the most comfortable room in the most welcoming house. Fireflies spelled out messages of love in the air, their lights forming words in languages that both their hearts could read, even if their minds didn't recognize the letters. As their dreams intertwined, Jane and Tarzan found themselves in a shared vision of a perfect day that felt like it could last forever. They were swinging through the trees together, but slowly, gently, like they were floating through clouds made of green leaves and golden sunlight. The jungle welcomed them with every branch that bent to support their weight, every vine that offered itself as a pathway through the canopy. They stopped to rest on a platform of woven branches high above the world, a natural balcony that some thoughtful trees had grown specifically for moments like this. From their perch, they could see the entire jungle spread out below them, like a living map of all the places they would explore together. Rivers wound through the green like silver ribbons, and clearings opened like pages in a book waiting to be read. In the distance, a rainbow arched across the sky, even though no rain had fallen, its colors so vivid and perfect that it seemed to have been painted there, just for them to discover. Tropical birds flew in formation beneath the rainbow, their wings catching the light as they spelled out messages of joy in a language only hearts could understand. Jane found herself laughing in the dream, a sound so pure and delighted that it seemed to make the very air sparkle. Tarzan's answering laughter was like distant thunder, warm and safe and full of promises. Together, their joy created ripples of happiness that spread through the jungle like gentle waves, causing flowers to bloom and trees to sway in celebration. The dream began to fade as morning approached, but it didn't disappear completely. Instead, it settled into their sleeping minds like a seed that would bloom again the next time they closed their eyes together. Some dreams, they both understood without speaking, were too precious to forget, too perfect to leave behind in the realm of sleep. As the first pale hints of dawn began to touch the eastern sky, Jane stirred slightly against Tarzan's shoulder. She wasn't quite awake, but wasn't entirely asleep either. Existing in that magical space where dreams and reality shared the same soft edges, she could feel Tarzan's steady breathing beneath her cheek, could hear the gentle morning chorus of birds beginning their daily songs. The jungle was waking up around them, but slowly, peacefully, like a sleepy child stretching in a warm bed. Somewhere below, she could hear the soft splash of animals coming to drink at the stream, the rustle of leaves as small creatures began their morning routines. But none of it felt urgent or demanding. It was simply the world saying good morning to itself, taking its time to remember how beautiful it was. Jane's eyes fluttered open just enough to see the way the early light was painting everything in shades of pearl and rose gold. Tarzan's face in the morning light looked younger somehow, peaceful in a way that made her heart feel like it was growing larger in her chest. His dark hair fell across his forehead, and she had the sudden urge to brush it back, but she didn't want to wake him from whatever peaceful dreams he was having. Instead, she settled back against his shoulder and let herself drift between sleeping and waking, enjoying the perfect stillness of the moment. This was what happiness felt like, she realized. Not the bright, excited happiness of a party or celebration, but the deep, quiet happiness of being exactly where you belonged, with exactly the person you were meant to be with. The sun climbed higher, painting the jungle in increasingly vivid shades of green and gold. But Jane and Tarzan remained in their tree, wrapped in the peaceful cocoon of early morning and shared dreams. There would be adventures later, discoveries to make, and wonders to explore. But for now, there was only this perfect moment, suspended between night and day, between dreams and waking, between the wild jungle and the civilized world that seemed so very far away. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves around them, carrying with it the sweet scent of morning flowers and the promise of another day in paradise. Jane smiled without opening her eyes, knowing that whatever adventures lay ahead, they would face them together, just as they had shared this perfect night of peace and dreams. The jungle stretched out endlessly around them, full of mysteries and wonders waiting to be discovered. But the greatest wonder of all was right here in their tree, in the gentle rise and fall of Tarzan's breathing, in the warm safety of his arms, in the absolute certainty that love could grow as naturally and beautifully as anything in this magical place they called home. As the morning light grew stronger and the jungle came fully awake around them, Jane and Tarzan slept on, their dreams now filled with the promise of another day together in their perfect world, where time moved like honey and every moment felt like a gift from the generous heart of the earth itself. In the golden light of morning, their peaceful slumber continued undisturbed, as if the jungle itself had decided that some moments were too precious to interrupt. The great mahogany tree seemed to cradle them with extra gentleness, its ancient branches swaying just enough to provide the softest rocking motion. Like a grandmother's chair on a quiet porch, Jane stirred first, not fully awake, but aware of warmth and safety, and the most wonderful feeling of being exactly where she belonged. Her dreams had been filled with colors that didn't exist in the waking world, melodies that seemed to come from the very heart of the earth, and a sense of belonging so complete it felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. Beside her, Tarzan remained deep in sleep, his face peaceful in a way that reminded Jane of carved marble statues she had seen in museums, except warmer, more human, infinitely more dear. His chest rose and fell with the steady rhythm of someone who had found perfect peace, and Jane found herself matching that rhythm without conscious thought. The morning sounds of the jungle created a symphony of contentment around them. Tropical birds called to each other in voices like liquid gold, their songs weaving together into harmonies that seemed designed specifically for lazy mornings and gentle awakenings. Somewhere in the distance, a waterfall cascaded over rocks, its voice a constant whisper of serenity that spoke of timeless patience and endless peace. Jane's eyes opened slowly, taking in the transformed world that daylight had painted around them. Everything looked different in the morning light, softer somehow, as if the night had washed away all the sharp edges and left only beauty behind. Dewdrops clung to every surface like tiny diamonds, each one catching and reflecting the golden sunlight into miniature rainbows. A family of colorful parrots had settled in the branches above them, their feathers brilliant as jewels against the green backdrop of leaves. They chattered quietly among themselves, their voices musical and cheerful, like friends sharing pleasant gossip over morning tea. One of them, a magnificent bird with feathers of emerald and sapphire, cocked its head and looked down at Jane with bright, intelligent eyes that seemed to sparkle with friendly curiosity. Jane smiled up at the bird, feeling a warmth spread through her chest at this small moment of connection. In London, she might have seen such a creature only in a zoo or in pictures in her father's books about exotic lands. Here, it was simply a neighbor saying good morning, and the thought filled her with quiet joy. The air was sweet with the fragrance of flowers that bloomed only in the early hours of dawn. Their perfume so delicate it seemed to dissolve on the tongue like spun sugar. Jane breathed deeply, trying to capture the scent in her memory so she could recall it during any future moments when she might need reminding of what pure happiness smelled like. A gentle butterfly with wings like stained glass windows fluttered past, its flight path lazy and meandering, as if it had nowhere particular to be and all the time in the world to get there. Jane watched its progress with the kind of attention she had once reserved for the most gripping novels, finding more drama and beauty in its simple journey from flower to flower than in any adventure story she had ever read. Tarzan's breathing changed slightly, becoming deeper and more regular, and Jane knew he was beginning the gentle ascent from deep sleep to the peaceful awareness of morning. She remained perfectly still, not wanting to disturb his transition, content to simply exist in this moment of perfect quietude, where time seemed to have forgotten its usual urgency. The sun climbed higher, sending shafts of golden light through the canopy that moved and danced as the leaves stirred in the morning breeze. Each beam of light seemed to carry warmth and promise, painting everything it touched in shades of honey and amber that made the whole world look like it had been dipped in liquid sunshine. Jane found herself thinking about the strange magic of morning in the jungle, how different it was from the hurried dawns of civilization. There were no clocks here demanding attention, no schedules insisting on immediate action, no urgent responsibilities clamoring for priority. Instead, there was only the gentle invitation of a new day unfolding at its own perfect pace, like a flower opening its petals to greet the sun. A soft sound from below caught her attention, and she looked down to see a young deer picking its way delicately through the undergrowth, its movements graceful as a dancer's. The creature paused beneath their tree to nibble on some tender shoots, completely unafraid and utterly at peace in its natural home. Jane felt a surge of gratitude for being allowed to witness such simple, perfect moments of wild life continuing its ancient rhythms. Tarzan's eyes opened slowly, and when he saw Jane watching him with such tenderness, his face broke into a smile that could have powered the sun itself. It was a smile without words, speaking directly from one heart to another in the universal language of love and contentment. He didn't speak immediately, seeming to understand that some moments were too precious for words, too perfect to disturb with anything but the gentlest acknowledgement. Instead, he reached up to touch Jane's face with fingertips as light as butterfly wings, tracing the curve of her cheek with such reverence that she felt tears of happiness gather in her eyes. This simple gesture contained more poetry than all the sonnets ever written, more music than all the symphonies ever composed, more art than all the masterpieces ever painted. The jungle around them continued its morning celebration, a festival of life and growth, an endless possibility that seemed to welcome each new day as a gift beyond measure. Monkeys chattered in the distance, their voices cheerful and playful as children at recess. Birds sang their hearts out in pure joy at being alive, and the very air seemed to shimmer with contentment and peace. Jane and Tarzan sat together in their tree, watching the world wake up around them with the kind of attention usually reserved for the most spectacular sunrises or the most magnificent sunsets. But they had learned that every moment in this place held its own kind of spectacular beauty, its own unique magic that deserved to be witnessed and treasured. A gentle rain began to fall, so light it was more like a mist than actual precipitation, creating tiny prisms in the air as each droplet caught the sunlight. The sound it made on the leaves was like the softest applause, as if the jungle was clapping for the beauty of the morning. Jane and Tarzan remained dry beneath the natural umbrella of their tree's broad canopy, watching the silver curtain of rain transform their world into something even more ethereal and dreamlike. The rain brought new fragrances, releasing the deep, rich scent of earth and growing things that spoke of endless cycles of life and renewal. Flowers opened their faces to receive the moisture, and Jane could almost see the plants drinking in the nourishment, growing stronger and more beautiful with each passing moment. As the gentle shower continued, steam began to rise from the warm earth below, creating wisps of mist that danced between the trees like spirits of contentment made visible. The whole jungle seemed to sigh with satisfaction, settling deeper into its rhythm of perfect peace and timeless beauty. Tarzan's arm tightened gently around Jane's shoulders, not from any sense of protection, but simply from the pure pleasure of holding someone precious close. She leaned into his warmth, feeling safer and more at home than she had ever imagined possible. This was what belonging felt like, she realized. Not the artificial belonging of social expectations and proper behavior, but the deep, natural belonging of finding your place in the great web of life. The rain gradually lessened to a whisper, then stopped altogether, leaving the world washed clean and sparkling fresh. Everything looked newly minted, as if the earth had been polished to a shine, while they watched drops of water clung to spider webs, transforming them into works of art, more intricate and beautiful than any human craftsman could create. Jane found herself thinking about the letters she would never write, the explanations she would never need to give. How could she possibly describe this life to people who lived by clocks and calendars, who measured success in terms of possessions and social standing? How could she explain that happiness could be found in something as simple as watching rain fall on leaves or feeling perfectly safe in the arms of someone who understood that love wasn't something you earned or achieved, but something you simply allowed to grow? The morning stretched ahead of them like a golden road leading to infinite possibilities. There would be discoveries to make, wonders to explore, moments of adventure and excitement. But there would also be more mornings like this one, more perfect dawns shared in peaceful contentment, more opportunities to simply exist together in the magical space where two hearts had learned to beat in harmony. A family of exotic birds settled in a nearby tree, their plumage so brilliant it seemed to have been painted by an artist who understood that nature never worried about being too colorful, too beautiful, too generous with its gifts. They preened their feathers in the morning sun, occasionally calling to each other in voices like liquid music, creating a soundtrack for the perfect morning that seemed to have been composed specifically for moments like this. Jane closed her eyes and let herself sink deeper into the feeling of absolute contentment that surrounded them like a warm blanket. This was what stories were supposed to end with, she thought drowsily. Not dramatic declarations or grand gestures, but simply two people who had found their way home to each other, sitting together in perfect peace as the world continued its ancient dance of beauty and renewal around them. The jungle held them in its gentle embrace, promising endless tomorrows filled with simple wonders and quiet joys, mornings that would dawn as softly as this one, evenings that would settle as peacefully as the night before. And in that promise, Jane and Tarzan found everything they had ever needed to know about happiness, about home, about the kind of love that grows as naturally as trees reaching toward the sun. The golden morning light filtered through the canopy with such gentle persistence that it seemed to be whispering secrets to the leaves, each ray carrying promises of another day filled with simple miracles waiting to be discovered. Jane felt herself floating in that perfect space between sleep and waking, where thoughts moved like honey and every breath felt like a small celebration of being alive. Beside her, Tarzan stirred with the kind of movement that spoke of someone completely at peace with their place in the world. His eyes opened slowly, taking in the transformed jungle that morning had painted in shades of emerald and gold. When his gaze found Jane's face, his smile was like sunrise itself, gentle and warm and full of quiet joy that needed no words to express itself completely. They remained still for a long moment, simply existing in the peaceful bubble that their tree had created around them. The jungle continued its morning song, a symphony of contentment that seemed to celebrate the simple fact that another day had arrived. To offer its gifts, somewhere in the distance, a family of howler monkeys called to each other, their voices carrying across the canopy like friendly neighbors, sharing the news that all was well in their corner of paradise. A gentle breeze stirred the air around them, carrying with it the sweet fragrance of flowers that bloomed only in the early hours, their petals opening like small hands, reaching toward the warming sun. Jane breathed deeply, feeling the floral perfume fill her lungs with something that felt like liquid peace, a reminder that beauty could be as essential as oxygen when you knew how to pay attention to it. Tarzan's voice, when he finally spoke, was as soft as the morning mist that still clung to the distant hills. He told Jane about the dream he'd been having, a vision of the two of them walking through a garden where every plant seemed to recognize them as old friends. In his dream, flowers had turned their faces toward them like small suns, and butterflies had spelled out messages of welcome in the air. With their graceful flight patterns, Jane smiled at his words, feeling the warmth of recognition spread through her chest. Her own dreams had been filled with similar visions, as if their sleeping minds had wandered into the same peaceful realm, where love and nature danced together in perfect harmony. She described her dream of flying through clouds made of flower petals, of landing softly in meadows where the grass sang lullabies and streams babbled stories of ancient wisdom. As they shared their dreams, a family of colorful toucans settled in the branches above them, their magnificent beaks catching the morning light like polished jewels. The birds seemed to listen to their conversation with the kind of attention usually reserved for the most fascinating stories, occasionally tilting their heads or ruffling their feathers in what looked remarkably like nods of approval. The morning air grew warmer as the sun climbed higher, but their tree provided perfect shelter, its broad leaves creating a natural umbrella that filtered the light into dancing patterns on their skin. Jane felt like she was sitting inside a living cathedral, surrounded by pillars of wood and windows of green that let in just enough light to make everything magical without being overwhelming. A gentle splash from the stream below caught their attention, and they looked down to see a family of river otters playing in the shallows. The sleek creatures dove and surfaced with obvious delight, their games creating ripples that caught the sunlight and scattered it across the water like handfuls of diamonds. Their playful chittering drifted up through the morning air, adding another layer to the jungle's symphony of contentment. Tarzan began to hum again, the same wordless melody from the night before, but somehow it sounded different in the morning light. Where it had been a lullaby in the darkness, now it felt like a celebration, a musical acknowledgement of the gift of waking up together in paradise. Jane found herself humming along, their voices weaving together in harmonies that seemed to please even the birds, who added their own musical contributions to the impromptu concert. The peaceful morning stretched ahead of them like a golden path, leading to infinite possibilities. There was no urgency here, no pressure to accomplish anything more demanding than simply existing in perfect harmony with the world around them. This was what mornings were supposed to feel like, Jane thought with drowsy satisfaction. Not rushed or anxious, but gentle and welcoming, like being embraced by time itself. A butterfly, with wings like pieces of stained glass, fluttered past, its flight path so leisurely it seemed to be dancing rather than flying. Jane watched its progress with the kind of attention she had once reserved for the most captivating performances at London's finest theaters, finding more grace and beauty in its simple journey than in any human art she had ever witnessed. The jungle around them pulsed with quiet life, each creature going about its morning routine with the kind of peaceful efficiency that came from knowing exactly where you belonged. Birds preened their feathers and called to their mates. Small mammals rustled through the undergrowth in search of breakfast, and flowers continued their slow dance of opening to greet the strengthening sun. Tarzan's hand found hers in the dappled light, his fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture so natural it might have been choreographed by the morning breeze itself. His touch was warm and steady, like an anchor that kept her connected to this perfect moment, while simultaneously making her feel as if she could float away on pure happiness if she chose to. Jane found herself thinking about the strange alchemy of contentment, how it seemed to transform even the simplest moments into treasures worthy of a lifetime's remembering. The way the light fell through the leaves, the sound of Tarzan's breathing beside her, the distant call of exotic birds, all of it combined to create a symphony of peace that felt more valuable than any material wealth she had ever imagined. A gentle rain began to fall again, so light it was barely more than mist, each droplet carrying the promise of growth and renewal. The sound it made on the leaves was like the softest applause, as if the jungle was celebrating its own beauty. Jane and Tarzan remained perfectly dry beneath their natural canopy, watching the silver curtain of moisture transform their world into something even more ethereal and dreamlike. The rain brought new fragrances rising from the earth below, the rich scent of soil and growing things that spoke of endless cycles of life and rebirth. Jane breathed deeply, feeling connected to something vast and eternal, something that had been growing and blooming and celebrating itself long before she was born. and would continue long after she was gone. As the gentle shower continued, steam began to rise from the warm earth, creating wisps of mist that danced between the trees, like visible spirits of joy. The whole jungle seemed to sigh with satisfaction, settling even deeper into its rhythm of perfect peace and timeless beauty that made every moment feel like a small miracle worth treasuring. Tarzan's voice drifted through the misty air like another layer of the morning's music, telling Jane about the first time he had watched rain fall from this very branch. He had been much younger then, still learning the jungle's rhythms, still discovering that some of the most profound pleasures in life required nothing more than paying attention to the world's generous display of beauty. Jane listened with the kind of attention she had once reserved for her favorite stories. But this was better than any book because it was real and happening now, and she was part of it. She told Tarzan about rainy mornings in London, how different they had felt behind windows and walls, how she had never imagined that rain could feel like a celebration rather than an inconvenience. The morning rain gradually softened to a whisper, then stopped altogether, leaving their world washed clean and sparkling with renewed freshness. Everything looked newly created, as if the earth had been polished to perfection while they watched. Water droplets clung to spider webs, transforming them into art more intricate than any human hand could create, more beautiful than any gallery could display. A family of monkeys swung past in the distance, their movements so fluid and joyful that they seemed to be dancing through the trees rather than simply traveling. Their calls echoed through the canopy like laughter, adding another note of celebration to the morning's symphony of contentment and peace. Jane felt herself sinking deeper into the feeling of absolute belonging that surrounded them like the warmest embrace. This was what happiness looked like when it wasn't trying to prove itself, when it didn't need to be loud or dramatic or impressive. It was simply two hearts beating in harmony, while the world continued its ancient dance of beauty and renewal around them. The jungle stretched endlessly in all directions, holding countless secrets and wonders yet to be discovered. But the greatest wonder was right here in their tree, in the gentle rhythm of shared breathing, in the perfect safety of loving arms, in the absolute certainty that some gifts were too precious to question, too perfect to analyze, too beautiful to do anything but accept with grateful hearts. As the morning light grew stronger and the mist began to clear, Jane and Tarzan remained in their peaceful sanctuary, wrapped in the kind of contentment that needed no improvement, no explanation, no anything except the simple recognition that they had found something rare and precious in a world that offered such gifts only to those who knew how to receive them with open hearts and quiet minds. The day stretched ahead of them like an unwritten poem, full of verses yet to be discovered, stanzas yet to be lived, rhythms yet to be shared, in the endless song of two souls who had found their perfect harmony in the heart of a jungle that seemed designed specifically for love to grow as naturally as the ancient trees that sheltered their dreams. In the growing warmth of the morning sun, Jane found herself thinking about the peculiar way time moved in their jungle home. Minutes could stretch like golden syrup, each moment expanding to hold more peace than entire days had contained in her previous life. Hours passed like gentle sighs, unmarked by any clock except the sun's slow journey across the sky and the changing chorus of creatures who took turns serenading the day. A hummingbird appeared near their branch, its wings beating so fast they were invisible, creating a soft humming that sounded almost like a tiny motor made of pure joy. The little creature hovered for a moment, studying them with bright black eyes that seemed to sparkle with curiosity, before darting away to visit a cluster of bright orange flowers that had opened their faces to catch the morning dew. And so, our gentle story draws to its peaceful close, like the last notes of a lullaby fading into the whisper of evening wind. Jane and Tarzan have found what we all search for in our quietest moments, that perfect sense of belonging that needs no explanation, only acceptance. Their love grows as naturally as the jungle around them, unhurried and unforced, teaching us that the most beautiful adventures are often the ones where nothing needs to happen except two hearts learning to beat in harmony. Sleep well, knowing that somewhere in this vast world, love still grows, wild and free, patient as ancient trees and gentle as morning rain.